I'll call to order our school board session for tonight. I just wanted to do that. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all. Tonight in attendance, we have myself, as well as Director Veach and Director Kincaid. Director Carey is on his way here. He's online, so he's in attendance, but he'll be in person shortly. Also, we have our Superintendent, Dr. Middleton, in attendance, acting as board secretary. So, moving on to item 2A, board comments. We will start with, I don't have to look at the screen to see who's, I can just pick someone. Director Kincaid, why don't you go first?
I got nothing really to say.
Fair
off
enough.
the top of my head. So.
Okay. Director Veach?
So I didn't prepare board comments tonight, but I wanted to thank Paige, actually, the principal at Monte Cristo. We went to the Instructional Materials Committee meeting this week, and I appreciated the time that she took she was looking at the data from our diagnostic tests and from iReady, and could see that there was some opportunities there, and took the time and spent the time to find a tool and take action and bring that to the committee for some review and our approval. And I'm not sure that it made it into tonight's agenda, actually, but it'll be here probably on the next thing. But I just wanted to thank you for making the time and the effort to really take action and advocate on behalf of the students. I appreciated that. I'm excited about the work that we're doing there in the Instructional Materials Committee and the work that we're doing to close those gaps. And just wanted to say thank you to the members of the committee that work with us all, that prepare and review and spend that time. So thank you.
All right. I forgot to mention real quick, attendance. Emma is on, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so our student representative Emma is on via technology, and Maya, does she have a game?
Might have a game.
Okay, all right. So I wanted to recognize them as well. So forgive me for leaving them out. That's not intentional. My board comments, just want to encourage everyone to vote. I know we got our pamphlets in the mail. So we're gonna be filling those out and turning them in very shortly. And encourage you all to vote as well. It's a chance to really show your support. So everyone get out and vote. Other than that, I'm gonna say it again just because it's been a great success. I really appreciate the hard work done at Mountain Way. For the drop-off and pickup work. It's not perfect, obviously, but the efforts everyone put in it has really shown a vast improvement. I know everyone in the community is really appreciating that. I know we are looking forward to getting stuff fixed or making changes at Monte Cristo as well, as soon as the resources allow. So that's going to help as well. So really do appreciate that. That's all I have. I was trying to start out for Carl. He should be here just any minute. Because he just jumped off, she's got to be walking in the door. Yeah. Want to tell people to vote real quick? I'll tell you what, we can.
And Emma has comments too.
Emma, Emma. Yes, Emma, please.
All right, so for this week, my board comments are at Crossroads last week, our semester did end, and from what I hear, the students felt pretty confident about their grades. Today we had our sources of strength training, and that was a big hit with the students and the staff. They had a lot of fun today. And then finally, for my board comment, I would like to say that I am stepping down from the board. I'm currently working 20 to 25 hours a week. And I'm also trying to graduate high school a year early, and graduation is in a few short months, and I really need to get serious about focusing on my schoolwork. And I just don't feel I have the time to give the board everything it needs. But I am very thankful and very appreciative for everything I've learned and all the time I've spent on the board. And thank you guys so much. And I wish you all the best.
All right, before you go, Emma. So what training did you go through at Crossroads? What was that again?
Sources of strength. They're kind of like student counselors. They're kids who volunteer to be like kind of selected as like resources for other students. You know, they go through like suicide prevention training, just like peer-to-peer counseling training, all kinds of good stuff. I did it last year. I enjoyed it. I just didn't have time this year.
Okay, so how many students are involved in that? Again, so I'm asking you to explain this to the community as well. So
Yes,
people listen.
I'm not exactly sure. I had a ton of friends do it, and it seemed like there was quite a few. They just did it all day during the school day, and kids had to get permission, a permission slip from parents to be able to attend. It was just in the gym, but
Okay.
it seemed like quite a few, and there was our counselor, Ashley, Bridget, Jen, and maybe a few other teachers. I don't remember what teachers were missing today, but
Okay.
we're all there, and they went through training together.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I was just curious about that. I'm sure that I know the community was as well.
Of course, yeah.
All right. Awesome, thank you. All right. I guess, were there any other questions for Emma?
No.
No. All right, perfect. All right, we'll move on to 3A then. School improvement plans presented by Dr. Manns and school principals. I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Middleton real quick before Dr. Manns, Dr.
Sure,
Manns
thank
jumps
you.
in.
This is really just wanting to give a thank you to the whole administrative team and their schools as they've worked with this. So Dr. Manns, who is really our curriculum and assessment director as well as assistant superintendent, she's been working with our coach who has been with us for a number of years, Dr. Ann Ranker. And again, just to thank you to Mrs. Weddle and Ms. Skursky, Ms. Wynn, Ms. Wright, Mr. Bianchini, Mr. Nisley, Mr. Maynor, Ms. McVeigh. We're, of course, in the middle of COVID on a day-to-day basis. We're not sure until really minutes before school what the staffing is going to look like. They are dealing with students that have been removed from classrooms for a good part of last year and 2 years ago, focusing a lot on social emotional and trauma issues. But I'm appreciating them greatly for, while doing all of this, keeping the eye on student learning and academic achievement. And the adjustments that they've had to make, and I know you've had a chance to look at school improvement plans, and when we go in, or when principals come and share their story about their schools, you'll see the data that our students really struggled over the last 2 years. And really the path forward is adjusting our expectations so that, because the gamut is that much wider. We have those who have continued to excel regardless of the circumstances, hybrid, in-person, independent, but we have a larger number that are now a year behind, 2 years behind, 3 years behind. And the thing about data is data. And I'd rather just embrace the reality and start making plans forward than to think, oh, everything's okay, and let's just keep doing what we're always doing. We can't do what we've always been doing. So it's really supporting our administrators, supporting our teachers, and saying we can't rely on pre-COVID lesson plans. If it's February 2nd, it's no longer February 2nd, 2019. It's now 2022, and we have to meet kids where they're at. We have to be looking at the data. And I say that not just for data's sake, but for our students' sake, for their student learning sake. And we've got to get what's best for students at the forefront of everything we do. Mm-hmm. So to have our school improvement plans really, they've been recalibrated, and I appreciate their work because, as one of the things I've said for years is we can't be islands. We have to be a continent. And I just appreciate the work, the greater amount of collaboration that's going on. And I think you can see that in these school improvement reports. So I want to turn it over to Dr. Manns, who wants to give sort of an overview tonight, because as principals come and present to the board when it's their night, they'll go into it even deeper. But this is a chance for, again, this overview from Dr. Manns on behalf of her and the principals.
Thank you, Dr. M.
Hey, Carl. Real quick, while you get started, do you have any board comments, Carl?
I have some stuff I'll share in the ledge update, so I'll just talk about it.
Okay.
Well, good evening. Thank you, Dr. M, for those comments. We really are thankful for our administrative team. And as you can see, our team of hardworking principals is here with us this evening. And we'll be presenting our school improvement and professional learning plans. And I'm just providing a few overview comments that help put that into context. And as Dr. M mentioned, the principals will each have an opportunity to share their plan in depth and to talk with you specifically about the work that's going on. And as you know, the school improvement plan is created by each school principal and the team to move the school toward attainment of the strategic plan. And the school improvement plan addresses the goals for the school. So they have the goals, the action steps, and then also the ways to measure progress so that we ensure that each student meets with success. And you see in the plans, while specific subgroups are addressed, such as students with disabilities, the principals are attending to all of the subgroups, programmatic, and then also student demographics. So looking at all gender, race, ethnicity, if they're English learners, special ed, and so forth. And they monitor that regularly so that they're able to track the progress. And when you look at the school improvement plan, you might notice that there is a component that could include resources that are being brought into the school, or maybe a change of schedules, or maybe they're using professional learning communities in a different way. And at the same time, every year, we work collectively to lift our own practice. And so we are also continuing to learn, just as we want the students to learn. So the professional learning plan is the piece that goes along with the school improvement plan and shows you how the principal and the team are going to focus on lifting that practice. Principal learning, teacher learning, and in some cases classified learning. So it's learning as a staff. So as we prepared and thought about the presentation to you this evening, it just seemed important to share a few words of background about the overall systemic approach to improvement. And I know we often at study sessions, in meetings, we talk about our shared commitment to each student. You know, it's collectively, but it's each student's success, whether that means catching up in an area or getting enriched in another area. And really, to that end, we continue to refine our multi-tiered system of support. And so I'll spend just a little bit of time talking about this, but our multi-tiered system of support has been something we've been working on for years, and we continue this year to come together as an administrative team to make that stronger. And we look at the academic components for the students, so proficiency and growth. We look at behavioral components and also social emotional. And I thought it was important to put this diagram up here just to show that as we look at each component, these are all in place at all of the schools and district-wide, and they're interrelated. It's sort of like a bicycle. You know, to ride a bicycle, you have handlebars, you have a chain, you have wheels, you have pedals, you have all those parts. And they're each important, but it's the interconnection, the integration, and the working together that makes this system really work on behalf of students. And when I share about the multi-tiered system of support, I'm just going to read a quote to you because I think it's really powerful and it reminds us of why we do the work. It really, as we build and refine these systems, it's to provide an equitable and actionable framework that allows schools to meet the needs of each student in a context while respecting diversity,
Can I
civil
pause you
rights,
just for a
and human
second?
rights.
Just out of curiosity, are we broadcasting this presentation right now to the people on Zoom?
Zoom and YouTube, correct?
Yeah, Zoom
So
in.
they're seeing the screen right now? Okay, just wanted to make sure, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. And again, we will be able to talk more about this at another time, but just briefly, team-driven shared leadership. Our principals are the leaders of our district work with Dr. M, with our special ed director, Mrs. Mills, with our CTE director, Kevin Davis. We work together as a district team, and then they take the work to the school. And they have the school teams working at the schools and then rolling that out through classrooms. So there's training, there are tools that we use. We also do data-based decision-making, and we really look for the root cause. And Director Beach mentioned that in the comment about the Instructional Materials Committee. The school is digging down to what's the root cause for groups of students and how will we support those students? We include family, student, and community engagement, and that's in collaboration with all of the work there. A continuum of supports and evidence-based practices, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. And those of you who have been in our district for a while probably recognize that this looks familiar. I remember even when I first came to Granite Falls, I joined a team that Ms. McVeigh was leading at that time, and we were just starting to build the systems, and some of that work has happened at Crossroads. And so it's a refinement of that good work. This diagram I can share with you later if you'd like, but we'll spend just a couple minutes on this because it shows what we do when we talk about our systems of support. We really have ways to ensure that students have access to all kinds of support. The all category, the green, that's everyone has green. The green means universal supports for all students. And whatever we do, it's research-based and it's aligned to grade level standards and competencies. So everyone has that opportunity. And then tier 2, if we have some students who are either just needing some extra help academically, behaviorally, maybe struggling with some trauma pieces, some social emotional, or perhaps they need some enrichment. They've already mastered the grade level standards and competencies. Then we provide more intense support through tier 2. And those are interventions that we know through research have a positive impact. And we really deliver those with fidelity. So there's a continuous looking at how we do that well. And then the tier 3 is just a small number of students. And this could be students who perhaps are ready to move on and learn things more quickly. We might have some students who've mastered in high school and they're ready to take on some apprenticeships or some extra running start learning ahead of time. Or it could be that we have some students who need some specific help around behavior or academically they just need to really hone in and get that support. And so at that point, it's really student-based, it's individual, and the interventions are based on data and then the clinical judgments of the staff working with them. So we work as an administrative team, we're meeting monthly with our coach and then doing work in between to continue to refine our overall process. And we want to be able to ensure that everyone has really strong tier 1, but our tier 2 and tier 3 work well. And then principals work within that overall system. They take this back to their schools and then they're designing, because each school obviously has in our district unique grade span, they have different needs and strengths. And so they need to make sure that the systems really fit their schools. And that's the information that you see coming through the school improvement and professional learning plans. As they set goals, they've looked at subgroups that need some specific attention. They've looked at action steps that help them move forward. There's a gray circle on top of this triangle, and that is the process that we use in the school improvement plan. We really dig into the data, we plan, then the principals put that into action, and they're measuring, how is it working? And if it's working really well, they're gonna continue that intervention. They're gonna continue those next steps and continue to monitor. If we're finding that it's not, even though it's research-based and it's worked in plenty of other districts, it's just not working how we intended it for whatever reason, we figure out why and we make an adjustment. And then the acting is putting that next step and then it circles back around again. So it's really almost it's a scientific model, it's a medical model, it's a model that we use in education to ensure that our progress is data-based and it's meeting the needs, that every action we're taking is intentional. And as I close with my comments this evening, I would like to offer an invitation, if our school board would be interested in engaging more deeply in the work of the multi-tiered system of support, the work that's happening at the district, the work that's happening at the schools. Our consultant would be happy to come for a board study session. And then, of course, schools will be presenting their school improvement plans, and we'll be able to look more closely at those. So we tried to summarize a lot of information in this brief overview, and I want to thank you for your review of the school improvement and professional learning plans that were included in this week's board packet. And then I know in talking with each of the principals, they're already busy planning and preparing for the opportunity that they have to present to you specifically around their schools. So thank you very much.
All right. So comments and questions. I'm going to go first, so no one steals my questions like it always happens. Is that all right, board?
Yes.
All right. I had two questions, and it's for you, but also for the principals, so they know what I'm looking for when they come. I kind of thought I'd take this opportunity to give them a heads up. So I love that everyone, when they put down their goals on increasing, they put from percentage X to percentage Y instead, because that's my pet peeve. Everyone's probably aware of say, I'm going to improve by 5%. What does that mean? 5% or 5 percentage points? So I love that clear. What I would love to hear, and maybe you can describe it now if you want, but how do we come up with that percentage to improve? Like we say, we want to go from 20 to 40. Well, why? Like, how do we choose that number? Is there reasoning behind it? And I ask that because, and Carl and I know when we propose budgets and business and stuff, and someone says, I'm going to increase by 20%. Like, okay, why? Why not 15? Why not 25? Tell me how you got that number. So that's really important. I'd love to know that. And then I loved how it refers to, what was the exact wording? What example it was. Under the time frame of the goals, it's what is the projected length of time of the activity, and then when or how often will progress be monitored or data reviewed. I love a little more detail on that one in general about not only when they're going to be reviewed or how they're going to be reviewed and what's going to be reviewed and why. Because a lot of it's like ongoing, culminating with January 12, 2022 district training day. Okay, but like why, when, how, what does ongoing mean? So when I look at a plan, I'd love a little more detail of that nature. That being said, there is one just specific, I'll just mention it now, about reducing the number of school-wide referrals by 40%. I don't know what that means. By 40 percentage points or 40% in total?
Is that at?
That's at the high school. Let's say that's the only one. So I just need to know, is that 40 percentage points or by 40%?
At 40%.
40%? Okay. So, okay.
Total.
Okay, reverse by 40%, not percentage points. Okay, so make sure we're all speaking the same language there, because math. Those are my questions. Other than that, I'm really looking forward to getting, the presentation from the principals over the detailed plans. So thanks for letting me go first, board. Anyone else questions or comments?
Looking forward to hearing plans.
I'm the only one? Okay. It's the first time that happened. All right, thank you so much. I really am looking forward to the presentations. All right, business report prepared by Marshall. There. Oh, where'd he go? Usually he's in the other room, so I kind of lost track of him.
Let's go first.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Principals, thank you so much for being here. I look forward to any of the reports. I know you work very hard, so thank you.
I think I was going to ask. You're not on them individually. They're not.
This part of their school, for the presentation for the schools, like middle schools in 16.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, you're welcome to stay.
Yeah, you're welcome to say for sure.
It's, yeah.
All right, I was just gonna take questions on the report, but I also want to point out a couple of things real quick. Our enrollment is really strong, and we are up again. We had count yesterday, we're up again on count, and I think Dr. M's gonna make a comment about that in his presentation. Our fund balance is hovering around zero. It's probably gonna hover around zero until we get our taxes in April. That's mostly due to we're getting our property tax payments kind of slowly this year. We're still owed about $250,000 from the first half of the year's property tax. We also had much higher than budgeted enrollment this year, so the state fixes that. So our apportionment, our payments from the state come based on our enrollment, and for the first half of the year, it's based on our budgeted enrollment. And so we budgeted very conservatively for enrollment, and then we got a lot of enrollment that we were hoping for, but we didn't want to count on. And so the state doesn't fix how much money they're sending us until the end of January. So we got that payment 2 days ago, and I'm still in the process of analyzing what that looks like for the rest of the year. But we still had to have staff for all those kids for the first half of the year. We weren't getting any money for that staff the first half of the year, so we're kind of borrowing from the future to pay for the present. But it'll all catch up at the end of the year. We'll get our full apportionment. It'll just be the extra money will be spread out over the last 6 months rather than the first 6 months. So we're still, it is expensive to run school this year because of every day we walk into the unknown. We're having to pay for a lot of subs. We're having to do a lot of creative things with staffing to overcome the lack of subs. You know, some of the things are teachers will fill in during their prep period to take on a class for someone else. And so that person is out being paid on sick leave, and the person subbing for them is also getting paid. So it's kind of a double whammy there. And we're also having to have more staff because we need to manage the kids that transition to online school when they're quarantined and they come back so we're having to have 3 staff members that can manage that piece as well. So kind of a challenging staffing year all around. We're still holding that we're going to get to that 5% fund balance, but I'll have a better update next board meeting or next month. Questions about the?
I had one, but directors, I'll let you guys go first this time.
Go ahead.
So it seems like we keep hearing about the tax payments coming in slower. Is this trend, do you think, going to be a permanent trend, or? I'm just curious, because it seems like back when I first got on the board, they were pretty snappy with the tax
Yeah,
payments.
we would be, at this point of the year, we'd be maybe owed $20,000.
Yeah.
Based on what we project our tax payments to be.
Mhm.
Right now, we're owed, I think, almost $200,000. So it's the trend kind of started last year, and it's just kind of grown a little bit. It usually catches up. I mean, it caught up last year it caught up in April. So I'm imagining it will catch up in April.
Okay.
And it really, as long as we have enough money throughout our bank accounts.
Yeah.
That if as long as we get all the revenue by the end of the year, we'll be fine.
Yeah, it seems like, I'm just wondering if the trend is going to be the new normal.
Yeah.
And I mean, me personally, I just pay my mortgage part of my escrow.
Yeah.
Pay my taxes as part of my mortgage payment with the escrow. I'm just wondering, did that change? Is that not happening as much? I'm just wondering what's going on.
I know that they do. There's historic percentages of how we always hit 100% by the end of the year, by the end of the school year. But because the because our payments spread across 2 calendar years,
Mhm.
there's a ratio that's constantly being updated. And right now it's, last update was about 48% was paid in the October
Okay,
collections, and then 52 was paid in the April assessments. I think that split is growing.
okay. I was just curious and just wondering what to expect going forward. Any other questions, board?
I just have a comment. I will say it's nice to have an enrollment that's higher than expected. I spent a lot of time this past weekend speaking to a lot of school districts that have significantly lower than expected enrollments, and there's a lot of bills I'll talk about in my legislative update. They're pushing through the freezing enrollments based upon certain dates, and freezing levy calculations based upon a certain date, and those types of things. So it's a good problem that we aren't facing, which I heard a number like over half of school districts in Washington State are down enrollment right now. So that's a good problem to have, but certainly something that, as Marshall has articulated, makes us struggle nonetheless. So just FYI.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. 3C maintenance operations update prepared by Dion.
I didn't bring my cord, so the community won't be able to see it. I have an apple. I usually have it in my bag. Are there any questions about the report?
Are there any updates, or is this current? Okay.
This is current.
Board?
I didn't have any questions other than just a thank you to you and your group, as well as the Mountain Way staff for the work done for the new ferry line.
Oh, yeah.
And pick up and the drop off. It's been an unbelievable, huge success, I think. And, I've had, the Granite Falls Police Department, and a lot of people reach out and
Yeah, the
say,
city has approached me and
yeah,
said the same thing. They were grateful for that we did that for them.
yeah.
Now we just got to work on Christian.
That's what I was gonna say. There's still work to do there,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
But I appreciate, one of the things I appreciate most is, because I know we talked about it for a while, and people are like, when is it gonna happen? But I appreciate the kind of the thorough, systematic way that we went through it, doing it, training staff and stuff like that, because I would have hated to have just jumped into it and gone, there's a problem.
Yeah.
And then have to reshuffle. And I think that the methodical way that you guys went through that process was really, really good, because we've got something that works and everyone knows that it works now. That's really all the comment I have. I don't know if you're going to hang around for our discussion on the master study approval and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
I'll say.
Okay. I might have some questions for him and stuff in that as well, so.
I just have a question / I guess a clarifying question. So I noticed my kids at the high school said it was cold a couple days because the heat went out. I see that you said they repaired the leaking heat pump. Is that is it fixed now, or is it a work in progress? Okay, so whatever day that the heat went out, we got the leak fixed and it's back on.
So each school has pumps that help, push the water to the building. And the high school is a large building, so the boiler is on the other end of the high school. So by the time the water gets to the end, to the heat, it's cooled dramatically down. So we've been having these low water alarms on the 2 boilers there, which there's no low water. It's somehow it's tripping. So we noticed that one of the pumps was leaking water, and it was kind of grinding. So we take it down to Seattle, and they just rebuilt it for us, and then we placed it back in. So far, it's been working. So, but yes, it's been cold in there for a week and a half or so, off and on.
And how cold is cold? If you're in those classrooms at the end?
It's probably 62 to 60. Normally they're around 68,
Okay,
so.
so it's not, in the 40s,
Yeah,
but
no.
it's not super comfortable.
No, so normally there's two boilers and they switch off and on. So when it's just one, it's constantly on. So, and it's really loud in there. So normally one will shut off, the other one would come on, and it does that all day, all night. But when one is off, that one's constantly on, so only one part of the building will get warm, but the other side is like a lukewarm,
Mhm.
temperature, but it's not 40 degrees in there. But it's
Okay.
still cold.
Yeah,
If you're sitting just in a desk all day, it gets pretty
yeah,
cold.
okay. But we've fixed it,
Yes.
installed it, we're good. Okay, just checking on that. And then, I thought I wanted to go up one more because I thought I saw something, but then maybe not. I wasn't aware of that leak in the ceiling, but these pictures tell the story, I think. So the repair, the leaking valve in the gym ceiling.
Oh, yeah, that was Monte Cristo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
that just like happened all of a sudden. So there are valves, heating valves in the under the ceiling tiles, and at times, the buildings are getting older, so they leak. Like
Mhm.
here, there's
Mhm.
this building, we need a lot to do. And Nikolai did half the building this past summer here at the district office, so now he has to do the other side. Basically just like a T-valve that this leaks at the joint, and it just needs to be replaced.
right.
So that is in the Monte Cristo gym. Pretty high up.
Yeah, that looks like
Yeah.
it, yeah.
So, and very difficult for him, because he's actually standing on the box, because the lifts can't go any higher for him to reach it. But he got it done.
All right,
We replaced
rookie
those.
question, what's an expansion tank in the steam building? What are,
So that's where it basically is a holding tank for water.
oh,
When they put it in, L&I signed off that it was the correct tank. So a year later, we got the inspection, and it's the wrong size tank. And I kind of argued with that, you're the one that signed off on it, so how is it our fault to replace it? But, we have to replace it. So basically, it was like a 15-gallon tank, and it needed to be like a 35-gallon tank. So we had to basically purchase a new tank to get signed off to be certified by the state of Washington, that we can operate an HVAC system with the expansion tank.
gotcha, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Tina asked all the questions I had, the same question.
I wanted to make a comment then if I could. It's that, any community watching, you go to board docs, it's part of, should be part of the, listed on the webpage, sorry. And you can see the presentation that we're going through right now.
Yeah, I'll bring my cord.
Yeah.
This is an app.
And just to go off Director Reach, that picture of the scissor lift in the ceiling.
Yeah.
I scrolled through quick and looked at the picture before I read it, and I thought, how do they crash a scissor lift into the ceiling? I thought someone went crazy and they crashed the ceiling. I'm like, how do they do that? And then I read, oh, they're fixing a leak. I was about to say, man, what are you guys doing? So I encourage the community to go along to the board docs and look at the picture, because just glance at it like I did, I was like, man, what are you doing? But it makes much more sense that they're purposely, repairing a leak. So, all right, thank you very much.
Yep, you're welcome.
Dr. Middleton, Superintendent Report.
We'll go ahead. My report's in a couple of sections, and the first section is also going to include one of the people we'll be working with BLRB, and that's Sarah Fisher. And Sarah's on Zoom tonight because as we talk about this master facility plan recommendation, she's here to answer any questions that you might have. So We started talking in 2019 about a facility plan. And I'll get this online later, if that's fine. We started talking in 2019, and I think we all recognize that there's a lot of deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed. And when we first talked about it and started talking with firms informally, we realized that this is a bigger ticket item. Let's wait a little bit. Let's work on our financial situation first and then revisit. And so summer came this year, and I brought this up at our retreat, and just thought it would be a great idea to go back to talking about doing a facility master plan again. And so we did the RFP, and we had 5 firms all submit, and really it was a really great choice because we had 5 great candidates. And when we got through, we did select BLRB to present to you tonight. And we've been talking about this really for months, but tonight's really the formal approval. And BLRB really heard what we were looking for. And I was actually talking with Director Beach about this today. One of the key elements, and Director Carey has been such a strong advocate for this, is that when we have our really small amount of capital levy funds, please guide us. We don't want to put money into a building that in the short run, that in 3 or 5 years, we're going to be doing some, something more major with. Help us be very wise with these dollars. And so they heard us, and they're going to be there for us for our short-term projects, as well as mapping out where we need to go over the next 20 plus years, assessing all of our systems, assessing our electrical, our roof, our HVAC, everything. And so when we sat down and visit with BLRB, and then most recently, we've probably had 3 meetings, I think, since accepting or selecting them as a subcommittee. We most recently were talking about the contract, and the contract is what's in the board packet tonight that we want to present to you. And you can see the scope of their work and their timeline. And the other critical piece to this was the involvement of the community, that we would hear from community members who want to serve on a committee and give input on what the needs are, understanding our demographic report, understanding the various independent reports that we've had, whether it's been seismic or sort of a survey of our facilities. We've had a roofing assessment. And so we've asked to make sure that when they come back to us with, again, this plan, that they've incorporated those independent reports, as well as really listening to our community to put forth a plan that makes sense for Granite Falls. 3 people that we're going to be working very closely with. Sarah's on Zoom today, and then there's also Bob and Greg McCracken, who are principals of the firm, and Sarah's a senior associate. And I think Sarah's going to be the one we'll be working most closely with. And so Sarah, I've asked her to give just like a 2 to 3 minute introduction and again, just sort of recap what she's heard from us and what they'll be able to do for us. So Sarah, are you there and all set?
Can Kim mute herself?
Hi, I am there. Good evening, and thank you for hosting and to be able to have this opportunity for BLRB to speak to the Granite Falls School District Board. I'm Sarah Fisher. Josh, thank you so much for the introduction. I am a senior associate at BLRB Architects, and I'm a practicing architect now for about 20 years. Josh outlined very well exactly what we're going to be kind of just briefly going over, and your packet has more detail than I'll talk about, but we're excited to be part of this project. We do a lot of capital and facility planning for BLRB. BLRB Architects is based in Tacoma. We've been in Tacoma for 70 years now. We also have offices in Bend and Portland. So this is a great opportunity for us. We really enjoy working with communities and with schools specifically, and school boards just like yours, which is you have a desire to responsibly spend your funds, and the taxpayers want to see improvements in schools and maintenance of education systems in place. So thank you for hosting, and glad to be here.
Great. And I don't know if anyone has some questions of Sarah that might want to ask, and certainly some of those, if pertinent to the recommendation later on, now that she's online now, if there's something you want to ask, this might be the opportune time.
So I had a question. How often have you worked with district our size? I'm just curious about that. That's one thing I was curious about.
Yeah, that's really great. So Greg McCracken and Bob Lindstrom, who were mentioned just a second ago, have been working with districts just your size almost their entire careers. And we're talking careers that are double the length of mine.
Okay.
So I have come to education and out of the public sector from other small areas, but not in schools. Over the past, most of my career, in the last 3 years, I've worked with other smaller school districts. Let's say like Sumner School District. I'm currently working with Steilacoom School District, and then we work in Forks. We work Clarkston, Washington school districts, Sister School District in Oregon, all are of comparables, what would be considered smaller districts. So quite often.
Okay, that was my question. Board, any other questions?
I think I just had a question about timeline, but I don't even know if you know that. Do you have a bird on a wire kind of timeline yet or not?
Sarah, do you want to talk rough timeline? I know that we're looking to get some things done this year, but it's elongated. We're also looking at some community participation, even looking out 2 years from now.
Yes, so general timeline for this work for you is about 2 years. And starting now, we start with the way the scope of work is set up is do some immediate needs, identify these quick, low-hanging fruit, easy to grasp, things that can be done this summer to improve your schools, and then look at the long range over the next year where we get to know each other really well and figure out, again, through the community meetings, through placing essentially dollars on boards, where should we put funding, assessing the existing studies that you've already done, see if there are other studies that need to be done, and then see in about 2 years if there's a need for greater funds or improvements that need to be identified, different measures. So we're looking at about a 2 year nice consistent march here. Not a rush, but definitely want to stay consistent and make good progress.
I have another question, if that's okay. So forgive my ignorance on this. I'm gonna ask you to educate me on this because facilities planning is not my strength. But I know that some things become safety issues or maybe legal, maybe, I don't know, accessibility type, legal type issues. And so as you work prioritization and things like that, will your reporting call out if that is something that's legally required or if it's a safety issue or something? Does the report include that kind of information so that we would know that we're maybe out of compliance if we were unaware? Does it do that kind of thing?
The types of reports we'll recommend, something like immediate needs, and that would be like an immediate need. Hey, this could use more attention. The goal is to prioritize, let you know what those immediate needs are. You may not know what they are right now, and so getting into those immediate needs, and then looking at the longer, slower burn ones, or the ones that may take more funding to to develop and how that comes from. So we will take a visit to your schools. We've already had quick assessments done that actually outline quite a few potential improvements. And we know what we can see. So we will be taking walks through the schools and just noting what we can see or what we may assume from an age of a building, let's say a seismic upgrade, for example. Our structural engineers will take a look through and make some basic assessments. To really get to the full need or the true immediacy, that takes more studies. This is trying to get the ones that are right out in front and get the initial identification that it may be.
Okay.
If I could add to that comment, that was one of our questions when we met 10 days ago or so. And I think we were just as blunt as if, as you're inspecting, you open an electrical box and it's chaos, the immediate response from Sarah, Bob, and Greg was absolutely, we're going to, let you know that, this is high needs, you have to do this. There's no,
Right. Yeah.
no waiting on
I'm
something.
always asking about accessibility more in like, I don't know, disabled parking or ramps or steps, or that's kind of my jam. So I just wanted to make sure that if we were unknowingly out of compliance in anything, like, please do tell us quickly so that we can make it right. That's all.
Thank you.
All right,
No other questions?
I think that looks like it's it.
All right. Thanks, Sarah, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
She's gonna stay on for our review and approval of it, or are we gonna let her go?
That's not too far from now on the agenda. I had just asked her to stay for this portion because,
How long do you think our reports are going to take, board reports?
I just didn't know if the board had some questions. Maybe we don't, had some questions there. I don't have any. I just didn't know once it comes down to saying yay or nay, if there's value.
I don't want to give anything away, but there's a reason I had you on that process. I trust you. Just say it.
I am good, so I'm good if we want to let her go.
Okay.
all right. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
The second part of my report is sort of a recap of our work session. And I'm doing this, I know the five of us were talking last week, but for our community members who are watching this evening, I just thought I'd give a quick recap of that work session. And really the work session was about you and your goals, and Director Butler facilitated that meeting and basically said, okay, we want what rises to the top in your mind in terms of as a board. And so one was just really the board engaging and supporting the efforts to tell our story. And I think we've said a number of times that if we don't go out and tell our story, someone else fills in the gaps. And really, we have a lot of great things going on. And so we talked about Director Kincaid taking really an active role in helping tell our story, making sure we're talking about the progress, needs of our system, letting the community know who you are, know who the district members are, and having more opportunities to engage with the public. And so great first goal. The second was making sure that we always keep a student's focus, a student's first focus. We're going to start moving our board meetings to the schools so that we can, when the principals are reporting, that they can share about their report as well as anything else they want us to see in the school. Communicating our academic progress. And really, I have to commend Ms. McVeigh because she is always advocating for the student voice. And even last night at our equity team meeting, She's saying, we really have to get more students involved in this. And so looking forward to that. The third, I just am really proud of the board for saying, you know what, we want professional development. And so we have set some goals for some times and some topics to go through. And I think this goal certainly supports the previous one of a student's first focus. So really understanding the data, understanding our budget, understanding the different systems within the state. Again, in my meeting today with Director Beach, just a great reminder to move away from acronyms. And so that our public really understands what we're saying when we say something. We're not always using acronyms. And the last one, which I'm always appreciative of, is always working toward a productive and efficient and effective relationship between board and superintendent. And I just value our two-way communication, times when we meet individually during the month, and then any initiative that you might have that we can partner on. So really just a great work session. And I know that was one more evening out of your month, but I think it was time really well spent. And again, I think it just will really benefit us collectively. Then the last couple of things I have is just, again, we've already mentioned the levy is less than a week away, and looking forward to that coming and going and just moving forward from there. Appreciate all the support that has been shown for the levy, and looking forward for those results next week. Really don't have any new COVID updates, but I will share once again that as Europe goes, the United States is usually a couple weeks behind. And even as we've been sitting here tonight, one of the news reports coming out from the state level was seeing a decline in COVID cases. So I didn't read that, but that was the headline. And so as restrictions and mandates are loosening up in Europe, I'm hoping we're not too far behind on that. Then finally, of course, the new semester is here. We are halfway done with this school year, which is hard to believe. But as Director Carey mentioned, at legislative meetings that he and I were on Sunday, and then yesterday also, I believe, I think I heard like 2/3 of the districts are all on decline this year. And so when the February 1st numbers came and Marshall shared those out, and we were at 2150, that's just great news to celebrate. And so really pleased that for our budget and for families coming here, we welcome them and look forward to all of those students having just a great student experience here. And the school improvement process that we talked about earlier is part of that. So any comments or questions?
Board? Yes, Director Beach.
I just have one question, just out of curiosity. What is, just in the last couple of weeks, do you know what percentage of our students are out on quarantine? Either exposure or illness or,
I don't have that number right now, but it's something I could get you.
Okay. I'm just trying to, I'd love to see our trend. I hope we're following Europe's trend and that our numbers are declining, right? I know it's an impact across the district, so just checking.
I had a question. Did you want to comment on the survey that was put out by the state
Yes.
as part of the COVID?
Yes, I would. Thank you. Just recently, the state Department of Health had put out a survey
I'll put that on you.
Yeah, well,
There we go.
yeah.
to all schools.
Can we get the camera on Dr. M?
Yeah, he just.
Oh, okay, you got him. Okay, perfect. I want to make sure. Yeah.
Sorry.
So they had developed a survey to include, to get a sense of including COVID vaccination as a requirement for school attendance for students. And that was a survey that was, I use an acronym, so Washington State School Directors Association. They saw that and they immediately sent it to all of you and to me to say, hey, there is a survey out by the Department of Health about this. You might want to disseminate this information. The closing date was today, maybe last night.
Last night, I tried to go on today again just to see, and it was already closed.
And so I appreciate Melanie because she got that and she immediately put that out to all of our families. Director Kincaid and I communicated and she said, I am letting people know this is a state survey. This is not a district survey.
Yeah.
But we certainly want people to participate. And so that survey has now closed. And we tried our best to get it out to the public, but the window was so short. I am disappointed that it wasn't a longer window. I mean, really, citizens ought to have a greater amount of time to comment on such a change than 5 or 6 days.
Thank you. I just wanted that kind of to be stated that this was not a district survey, that as soon as we got the information, we got it out. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions then? All right, moving on to, it is 3E, board reports. WIAA, we don't have a current representative. Talked briefly with Michael. There's nothing major to report on that front. So still waiting for that one. So, ledge report. I understand that ledge is in session.
It is, and it's been a busy couple of days as Dr. M spoke about, and as I mentioned at the last board meeting, there was a legislative conference over the weekend that I attended where with WASDA, where we talked about, it was actually a combination of WASDA, WASA, and WASBO, WASDA, Washington State School Directors Association, WASA, Washington
Officials,
Superintendents,
business officials.
business officials. So really 3 organizations coming together on a common theme to really express to our legislators the needs that we have in public education. And it was a really good meeting with a lot of good information shared. And then was that yesterday? Yeah, yesterday we got to meet with Representative Eslick and Senator Wagner during the 39th in reference to, kind of what we need. And they gave us a voice for about 15 minutes to speak with them. So there's a ton of bills. Obviously, we're early in the session. There's a ton of bills. There's a ton of things happening right now. It's kind of hard to tell what's going to have life, what's not going to have life. So there's a couple of bills that I certainly want to talk about, kind of the 3 hot topics that we spoke about to our representatives that kind of came from WASDA, and then some other bills that I was just looking at that were, I think, of interest to us. And then talk about a couple other things. So it's a little bit of a long report, so hang with me here for a bit. So one of the things I guess I want to start off with is a discussion relative to staffing allocations and what is called the prototypical school funding model. And we talk a lot about that here. And I felt like I had like 100% knowledge of it. And after this weekend, I realized it was probably about 75. And I probably made up, another 15 or 20% of that. But just to give the definition, if you guys don't understand, the prototypical school funding model in Washington, the state uses a funding allocation model called the Prototypical School Funding Model, PSFM, to provide each student in grades K through 12 with a basic education. The prototypical school funding model is a distribution formula to provide the minimum funding required by the state's definition of public education. This formula provides an allocation to local school districts and other local education agencies in support of the operations and minimum instructional programs of basic education. This formula is not intended to direct the school district to implement a particular instructional approach or service or to maintain specific school student staff ratios. With limited exceptions, school districts can determine how to best utilize their state funding to meet the unique needs of their students and community. Mainly, this model allocates funding in two ways: full-time equivalent, FTE, staffing values determined by student and staff ratios, and two, non-staff operating costs. Prototypical schools are identified by grade level and are broken out into three school types: elementary, middle, high. Each school type has an assumed enrollment of students for purposes of standardizing staffing ratios. So essentially what happens is the state creates this kind of theoretical school, this theoretical enrollment, and then they give a kind of a staffing level based upon that enrollment. So for example, for every 400 students in elementary, the state funds 1.253 FTE of principals. In the middle school, that's 1.353, and the high school, 1.800. So anything over and above that are the things that we have to pay out of our levy, right? So the prototypical model was implemented in 2010. And there was an intent to kind of modify the phase in, kind of update it as the years went past. So it's about 11 years old. And beyond some small tweaks, surprise, surprise, it really hasn't changed at all since 2010. So I guess let me talk to you about kind of the absurdity of the numbers in this. Based upon the prototypical model, in order for us to be funded for one nurse, we would have to have 5,263 kids just in K-6. We would have to have 7,200 just in 7th and 8th grade, and we would have to have 6,250 kids in 9th to 12th. So based upon that, the state funds us for 0.3 nurses. We have 3. One of them is an employee, 2 of them are contracted. Again, these are the types of things we have to pay out of our levy. I can't think in this day and age with everything that we're dealing with, outside of teachers and those types of things. I mean, nurses has to be in the top 3 most important things that we have right now, and the state pays for 0.3 of those, right? The state, based upon the prototypical funding model, the state pays us for 0.04 of the psychologist. We actually need 2.5, which we don't have. The state funds us for 3.3 paras. We have about over 25. So again, these are things, unfortunately, we are having to pay outside of the levy. So one of the things that they're trying to do this year, keep in mind the state revenue came in about $10 billion over what they expected. So there's money there. But one of the things that they're trying to do is they understand that there is a challenge with the kind of social emotional, nurses, kind of that stuff. So there's a number of bills that are moving through, which actually, when we spoke to our legislators, they certainly seem positive about it. The things I've heard about are positive. I'm talking about Senate Bill 5595, House Bill 1985, and House Bill 1664. So the big things about those bills is what they'll do is they will increase or provide enhanced allocations for the physical, social, emotional support staff in buildings. So it will revise that ratio related to nurses, related to counselors and stuff like that to provide a better funding for that. Certainly not going to lower it to the 3 that we need, but it's going to do more certainly than we have currently. So I know that's certainly something that I would love to see get passed. Then there's another bill related to budget stability, House Bill 1590, 5563, which will provide proportional enrollment stabilization amounts in the 21-22 school year. The school district's combined state revenue generated in the 21-22 school year is less than what its combined state revenue would be in 1920. So we're essentially kind of locking it there if it's lower in 21-22. And so one of the advantages of that is it's not asking for new money or a new model. It's asking the legislature to maintain the funding they have already approved for 21-23 operating budget for the 21-22 school year, so that the staff hired do not need to be let out of their existing contracts and programs designed to support the students do not need to be cut. Another one is related to pupil transportation is House Bill 1808, Senate Bill 5581. Starts the effort by reimbursing districts for the actual cost of transportating students with transportation written into their IEPs, students experiencing homelessness, and students in foster care. So again, trying to become to provide more real costs reimbursements for the costs that we as a district have transporting and students with IEPs all over the state. I think we transfer or transport all the way down south, pretty far down south as well. So those are kind of the three bills that they're pushing hard. Two of those I think would provide some significant impact here to us. Really no discussion related to regionalization, just to have a quick conversation on that. So outside of the prototypical funding model, then is regionalization, which was intended to provide an adjustment to the prototypical funding model to allow for the cost of living in a certain area. And as we've talked about a number of times, there's a severe inequity that we get here in Granite Falls related to other districts. One of the things that I found is very challenging for me is in 2020, the legislature actually did what they call a smoothing, which is they looked at all the regionalization factors of all the districts, and they wanted to smooth out any district that had greater than a 0.8 regionalization difference than an adjacent school district. So they take that district, if there was one that got like a 0%, and there was one that's got an 8, they would make that one that was a 1 and was a 4. Well, I'm not sure how. I'm certainly still looking into it, but I think we were left out of that. I mean, we are, based upon that metric, as I've said before, we're one of only 9 districts that are directly adjacent to a school district that has 10% greater regionalization. And we're one of only 2 that is close to 2 or more school districts. In fact, we have 3. So I'm not sure why we were left out of that. Based upon the discussions that I had with OSPI, they've set 2023 as a date of kind of reevaluating that regionalization factor and kind of allocating, I guess, or redefining the regionalization factors that were provided to districts. So I think, I think that has to be our goal and our message as we speak to legislators, as we speak to people around, is that when we need it now, but for sure in 2023, you need to look at this again, and we need to be given an equitable regionalization factor. And that's certainly the message that I'm going to push. We've got a little bit of a shakeup because, as you guys know, with the census, the maps were changed. So we're going to kind of have a new 39th when it's all said and done. But, and I'm not really sure how that impacts Eslick and Wagner. I think Eslick is going to end up in the 41st because she's in Sultan. I think Sultan is going to new 44. So we'll kind of have to see how all of that goes. But so a couple other bills that I guess I just want to touch on really quickly. House Bill 1973, which is another bill that feels like it is moving pretty quickly. It's already had a public hearing. This bill specifies that public records requests for recordings of meetings of a school district board of directors must include the day of the meeting requested. Provides that searches for public records need not include recordings of school district board meetings unless a day is given, and requires all school district board meetings to be audio recorded, subject to exceptions for executive sessions, emergencies with recordings, and kept for 5 years. So I know that we are certainly in this, we are recording video and doing those things. I haven't had or gotten clarification on, that there is certainly an audio piece of that, and it's saved on the cloud. I haven't been able to get clarity, and obviously the bill has been passed on if that meets that requirement. But essentially, all meetings, at the very least, we'll have to have an audio recording if that passes. Another one is HJR 4200, and there's a number of bills that are trying to do this. I have no idea if they'll make it or not, but it's a bill to change the state constitution from for bonds from an approval of 60% to a simple majority. As I said, there's a couple of them that are kind of floating through right now, and who knows how they'll work out. We talked about 5595. Those were the handful of bills I guess I wanted to talk about. Questions?
Any questions, board? I just make a comment, prototypical school funding model. I was aware of it, but I never actually did the deep dive like you did, and I'm looking it up going, that's some interesting math that they've chose to do.
It really is.
Yeah, I mean, psychologist, 0.017 funding for a psychologist in elementary school. And then, in middle and high school, it goes to 0.002. And it's just, I mean, yeah, interesting. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
Community report.
I don't have anything this time exciting, but hopefully next time I will. The ball is rolling to get our story out there. I've been talking to a lot of parents and families in the community about things they'd like to hear from us and see from us. And I've been working towards getting to know myself, getting to know staff and things like that I, haven't had a chance to get to know. So
Awesome.
working.
All right. Any questions then? I mean, no, there's none. Okay, perfect. Item 4 then, item from the floor. Do we have anyone sign up online or in person? No? Okay, so no one signed up. There is no unfinished business. We're gonna move on to new business. Item 6A, the facilities master study approval. Board, is there any discussion on BLRB and the approval of the facility master study approval?
I have some discussion, just real quick. I just want to briefly kind of talk about why I appreciate Dr. Middleton allowing me to be a part of this really from the beginning. And I just want to speak quickly about why I'm voting to approve it. It is certainly a significant amount of money at a time when we don't have a whole lot of money, but we've got all of this. I've talked about this before, but we have all of this great information available, provided to us. We have a previous facility plan. We have a demographic study. We have a seismic study. We have another evaluation of our facilities done by ICOS, I think is the name of the organization. But really nothing that brings it together, especially with the facility plan that was previously provided. There's a litany of information provided, but really no money tied to it, no useful remaining life. So it's almost impossible to act on. I mean, it's a shotgun of a large amount of information. One of the things that BLRB is going to come and do in that initial task 1 is give us an evaluation of these items along with a prioritization and a cost tied to them. And then they're going to step out into the 30,000 foot level, and they're going to look at all of these other information, and they're going to help us make wise decisions with taxpayer money. One of the most important things that we do, other than maintaining and improving the educational environment, I feel like, is maintaining the fiscal solvency of the district. Spending money wisely, and in the areas that it's going to have the most effect is, to me, obviously a key part of that. I don't want to spend money on a building that is going to, why would we replace the roof somewhere when we look at it? It's got 5 years remaining, and we go, well, at 3 years, we're at occupancy on this thing. Maybe we need to be looking at another building. So spending $20,000 on something that we're going to tear down in 2 years, to me, makes no sense. I want to spend money in the most effective way possible. And BLRB and this kind of study is going to be the key to us doing that. And also, I want us, the board, to have a voice in that discussion along with Dion and his team when we get that information back, to look at that all together and say, okay, what can get done this summer? Where does it make sense to spend this money? Here's the estimate of that money. Here's the priorities. Oh my goodness, we got this huge electrical problem. We've got a roof that's got only, a year of useful life on it. That's a huge priority. Let's do that. And really a collective, intelligent discussion back and forth that allows us to make, again, wise decisions with taxpayer money. So Dr. Middleton has been great, really giving me a voice in this. I've been able to work with BLRB and kind of craft it with the board's support. I would love to be involved with this all the way to the end, not because it needs Carl Carey to get done right, but just because I've got a clear kind of vision and a desire for kind of what I'm wanting here. And I want to make sure that, not because I don't think anyone would do it, but I just want to see it come to fruition. That's the type of person that I am. So that's why I'm going to vote.
Board, any other discussion?
I guess I'll just make a comment that in preparation for this, I'm not disillusioned enough to think that I understand master planning of a school district well. I did review the documentation and I called Director Carey because I knew he's been sitting through the meetings and kind of got his take on it. I also know that in his profession, he spends a lot of time reviewing and negotiating contracts and understands that better, I think, than I do, right? So I go to the person that I think has the most knowledge on the thing. We had a good discussion earlier, and I feel like this is money well spent for our district to ensure that the funding that we'll be spending, first off, to become aware of anything that there are certain repairs we're aware of, but getting the professional assistance to prioritize the repairs or the construction or the planning, or I should say, and all of those things, I think is exceptionally important. And I feel like this is something that I want to support as well. That's all.
Any other discussion, board? If there is no discussion, I'm willing to entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the facility master plan. Master study, sorry.
Second?
We have a motion made in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on to 6B, Resolution 2022-06, Transfer of Funds. Any discussion, board? Did anyone have a chance to review this, understand what it is?
I would like some clarification because I read it and I wasn't quite sure
Yeah, this
what
was
I was reading.
Big topic that we worked on many years ago, but so in a nutshell, and correct me if I'm saying this poorly, but we have always received funds from the leasing of logging land in the state.
Yeah.
Until recently, the state always just gave that to us and took it right back. Through a lot of hard work in many school boards, including our own, we were able to get the state to actually give us those funds. So they actually, it's done in our district, and so we actually received the funds. And they put it directly into our debt services. We're just transferring out of the debt services to where we need to put it, which is we're going to put it in capital projects.
Okay.
Did I say that correctly?
And correct me if I'm wrong, Marshall, but that's the only place those funds.
Yeah, that's where it can go. Yeah. Yep, that's what the money's for.
Okay.
This is a win. Because it used to be,
Yeah.
Carl will remember this when we were on the board, we would get like $100,000 in the state, but you'd be like, but the state's taking that right back at the end of the year. But now we get to keep it. That was one of the victories we had. Was it about 5 years ago, I think, we finally carved this sound right?
It sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question too.
Yeah.
Sorry to jump in.
No, go
So
ahead.
we're asking a transfer of 300,000, correct?
Yes.
And that 300,000 is going into, it's not going to the general fund, it's going to the capital. And that's what we can use to pay for this master plan,
Correct.
as well as other capital improvements that need to be done that meet the qualifications, right?
Yes.
So it's not, the money that we're going to spend for this study isn't going to hit our general fund. So as we talk about our fund balance and all of that stuff, it's not going to hit that bucket, which is another reason why I'm very for this.
And I want to reiterate what Dr. M said. We have to spend it in capital projects. We can't use it to do other things. That's what the money's allocated for. And we just get to keep it this time and use it. So
I guess. I thought I heard that there was an amount, and maybe this is a go back, I don't know, because I'm confused. There is some funding from the state for the
Yes.
master
Yes,
plan as well.
there is approximately 27,000.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to be sure that we called out that there's $27,000 of the funding comes from the state for this. And then the remainder is coming from this transfer. Okay.
Any other comments, questions? I'm sorry, Director Krinke, did that answer?
Yes,
Okay,
that did, thank
perfect.
you.
Yeah. So I'll give a little history lesson there. So, yeah. All right, if that being the case, we'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution 21-2206, transfer of funds, debt services to capital projects.
I have a motion made. Can I get a second?
A second?
Motion made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, passing unanimous. All right, we are on the next batch of policies that need to be updated. And
May I give a little overview on that?
Yeah, I was about to.
Chair?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have Dr. Middleton's going to kind of just explain this group right here.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You're fine.
We are on the second batch of policies, and these are also, all but one are existing policies that WASA has modified, whether it's due to language or legal. And so it's really just modifying existing policies with the exception of
The seizure.
the seizure
Yeah.
one, which is a new one, which we have to have. That's,
All right, so 6C, first reading to amend policy 3231, student records. Any comments, any discussion on this? All right, if there is no discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the first reading to amend policy 3321, student records.
3231.
No,
It is, yeah, it's a small
I don't
screen.
have my glasses on.
Motion's been made. Could I get a second?
I'll second.
Motion's made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Passing unanimous. Oh, I guess any opposed? Passing unanimous. All right, 6D, first reading to amend policy 3241, student discipline. Now, I did have a question on this one. When I was reading through it. So I normally policies for me are like 1, but there's an F1 and an F2. I read through them. What's the deal? I haven't seen that before. Maybe I just haven't looked that close.
One the policy, one's the
Forms.
process.
Form 1, they're just
Form
like,
1, Form 2.
it's just,
Anytime there's a form that supports.
it's just a
the
form that goes
policy,
with it.
it's a form.
Okay, that's what I thought. I hadn't seen that before. Yeah, am I the only one? I might be the only one. Any other comments, question, discussion on this policy? John?
So is this,
Yes.
this is verbatim from WASDA, right? We didn't change any other than putting Granite Falls and that stuff. We didn't change anything, right?
that's correct.
So I would imagine, all of this is the level required by the state, by state law. Do we have a way of, when we post these, is there a way to hot link to the footnotes? It's like on this document?
That's a great question. So where it says legal, you get the RCW listing.
So like if I click on, there's a footnote 41, if I click on it on this document or 21, it takes me down to the bottom to allow those footnotes.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Word docs have that ability.
That's what that's off of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
You're seeing a PDF off of Word Docs.
Okay. Because there's a lot of good information there, and I know when you start getting footnotes and stuff like that, it's hard to follow. But that's all I have.
All right. No further discussion. We'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the first reading to amend policy 3241, student discipline.
Motion is made. Can I get a second?
A second.
Motion made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passing unanimous. All right, 6E, first reading to to adopt policy 3411, accommodating students with seizure disorders. Any discussion on this one? I guess the only really comment is if it makes sense and
Yeah.
it needs to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should probably do this.
Yes.
So, that being the case, I'm willing to entertain a motion to accept items, a motion.
Make a motion that we to approve the first reading to adopt policy 3411, accommodating students with seizure disorders.
Motion's been made. Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All right, on to first, 6F, first reading to amend policy 3432, emergencies. All right, any discussion? I guess my only discussion, I do like the detail this went in with the changes. I mean, just kind of making it clear, but yeah. There is no other discussion or comments. I'm willing to entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we accept the first reading to amend policy 3432 emergencies.
Motion is made. Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimous. All right, 6G, first reading to amend policy 3520, student fees, fines, charges. Any comments, discussion? I didn't have any on this one.
I guess I do. So
Okay.
is it law that if they transfer and they have a balance, that section that we removed, that we can't hold the transcript, that's law now?
That's correct.
Any other discussion? If not, I'm going to entertain a motion.
I have motion to accept the first reading to amend policy 3520, student fees, fines, and charges.
All right, motion's been made. Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion made in second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passing unanimous. All right, 6H, first reading to amend policy 5011, sexual harassment of district staff prohibited. Any comments, discussion? If there is none, I'm willing to entertain a motion.
I'll motion to accept the first reading to amend policy 5011, sexual harassment of district staff prohibited.
Motion's been made. Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion made second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passed unanimous. Good job, we did it. That's one, item 7, consent agenda. I saw no additions, is that correct? All right, so that being the case, what's the phrase I'm looking for, Carl? I'm so used to additions. Passes by unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent.
Unanimous consent, yeah, so we're good to go there. If that being the case, it is now 7:32, and I will join our meeting for this evening.